How's it going, everybody? So in this video, we're going to be going over a basic course, basic principles on strength and conditioning for combat sports, including jiu-jitsu, mixed martial arts, and Muay Thai, but especially more for the grappling side of things. And we'll talk a little bit more like striking specific later, but these principles apply to striking as well, okay? So we're going to try to make this as basic and practical as we can without getting too deep into the science behind it. But if there's anything that I say that you disagree with or you think won't actually transfer to mixed martial arts or whatever, please ask me in the comments why I said what I did or why I think a certain way is good or whatever, so that we can kind of have a mutual understanding and constructive kind of discussion, okay? So first and foremost, okay, the most important thing as far as strength and conditioning for any sport is to get the majority of your training and the majority of your conditioning from sport practice, okay? So there's a really big kind of gimmick going around on like functional training. And the word functional really doesn't have any real merit towards what we're trying to achieve, because you can really make any kind of training modality functional as long as you tweak the parameters to match a certain quality that you want to improve. Anything can functionally improve an athlete in some capacity, okay? And some things are a little bit more useful than others. So the most functional training that you can do for your sport, the most sport specific, or the type of training that has the most transference, is training your actual sport in some capacity and getting the bulk of your cardiovascular conditioning, your muscular endurance, and even to a certain degree sport specific strength and power from the actual practice of your sport, okay? And there's many different ways that we can break this up, okay? You could do so for aerobic capacity, kind of like the same energy system that you would improve through running. You can get that through drilling, okay? So if you have like a 30-minute period where you and a partner just practice a move or a sequence, a defense, practice submissions, practice a takedown up against the cage over and over again, drilling that over time will give you a similar stimulus, a similar adaptation, a similar improvement in your aerobic capacity, in the energy system that you get from running. But it's better than running because it's actually practicing a skill that you're trying to improve. A lot of people, they'll spend 1 to 3 hours doing their sport practice every day. The majority of it is, a lot of it's warm-ups or like general like burpees and stuff like that. But a lot of people, they spend, and then they might have an extra hour every day per week to do some kind of running or something. 9 times out of 10, they would get way more benefit, it would be more fun, more engaging, and you develop more skill and more sport-specific aerobic capacity from actually doing flow rolling, drilling sweeps, drilling takedowns, drilling clinch works, transitions, drilling defenses, from doing defense like head movement drills. You could do what's known as one-step sparring, where one person does a combo and the other defends, and then you switch, and the other person does a combo of some kind and attacks, and the other defends, back and forth. It's really fun. You get to work on offense and defense at the same time. It's more realistic to your sport, and you can do that without getting injured, while improving your skills slowly but surely over time and getting a really good aerobic stimulus, okay? So that's how you develop aerobic capacity without running and stuff like that. There are so many things, and you could shadow box, you could shadow wrestle, you could do sport-specific solo drills like shrimping, practicing sidewinders, cartwheels, like guard passing, shadow wrestling, practicing, takedown like penetration steps and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that you can do. You could have like a heavy bag on the ground and just practice your transitions, your jiu-jitsu transitions, and practice submissions and stuff like that, even without a grappling dummy. All of those things are going to give you a similar stimulus to running for your aerobic capacity work, but at the same time, you're actually improving skills, you're learning new techniques, you're seeing opportunities that you wouldn't have seen otherwise if the majority of your time training was just whatever your coach gave you during class, and then you just went running, okay? Running is, yeah, so... and the other thing is that running and aerobic work and any kind of strength and conditioning that you do outside of your sport, it has a recovery deficit that it causes. Okay, so if you go running, it can cause a degree of soreness until your body adapts to it later on that can interfere with your ability to perform better during your actual sport training. However, if you do shadow boxing, if you do flow sparring, flow rolling, that actually seems to help people recover more. It's more fun, and it doesn't have the same kind of recovery deficit, as long as you're not going too hard, that running can have. But again, you will adapt to running over time, so it's not like you're fragile and running is going to hurt you. But I'm just saying, it makes more sense that if something's going to impede your recovery, to make it as beneficial to your sport as possible. Okay, so many different things you can do instead of running. Hitting the heavy bag, even. Really. And running's not bad. Running's good. But I'm just saying. So this is like the ideal scenario, right? Lots of drilling, lots of flow rolling, even just like playing around with a partner and practicing new things that you saw on YouTube. That is going to increase your work capacity and your heart's ability to pump blood to the muscles that are specific to your sport. All right, so after you have the aerobic capacity work done through easier sport-specific training, muscular endurance and like high-intensity anaerobic type of training. So basically, what they call glycolysis, glycolytic activity, lactic capacity, your body's ability to, buffer lactate supposedly and like use that energy system. Just like think in terms of when you compete and you're scrambling for a takedown, you're doing a lot of transitions, you're trying to escape a bottom position. Think you're on bottom half guard and you're trying to get an underhook, take the back and the other person rolls through and then you end up in guard and they try to pass your guard, like really high intensity scrambles where it's just constant movement near your maximum threshold, okay? This is like high intensity interval training style stuff like Tabata, burpees for time, trying to do, run as fast as you can in 2 minutes, followed by a recovery time, and then run as fast as you can in 2 minutes. These are just examples, okay? So that's a glycolytic system. That's a high-intensity kind of anaerobic system. That's lactic capacity, lactic power. It's super high intensity. This is different from like your low, flow rolling and stuff like that. It's not as intense. It's like more of a relaxing but kind of like vigorous, but still blood pumping type of thing. Anaerobic work, lactic capacity work, high intensity work, okay, is the most sport specific you can get, because during competition the whole thing feels like just constant like lactic constant high intensity with kind of breaks of like pacing yourself in between or whatever, depending on the sport. Something like MMA or Muay Thai usually has more kind of breaks in between than something like jiu-jitsu. Whereas like jiu-jitsu, if it's no-gi, it's usually very active and constant scrambling, just like wrestling. If it's gi, a lot of times you just hold on to someone and use more muscular endurance to slow the pace down. So anyway, you increase this system, the high-intensity system, whatever you want to call it, you increase it through, you can increase it through specific live drilling, okay? So the best way to improve your lactic capacity, your anaerobic work, your high intensity kind of threshold is pass or sweep or submit or positional rolling. So, and we're talking grappling specific, and we're going to go through a couple. So, for example, positional rolling. One example is like somebody takes your back, and then the person on bottom that's getting their back taken has to defend it and then escape the back position and land on top. And then the person who has the back, they have to choke you out or land on mount, you know. So the whole idea is it's a very specific skill we're developing, and we have one goal in mind, and we put every single amount of effort we can into that one goal. And then as soon as, you know, the person that has your back chokes you out, you reset. Or the person who has their back taken and they're defending, they have to try as hard as they can to get into a better position and escape the back. That takes every single ounce of effort they have. It's very high intensity. And then as soon as they escape the back, you reset and you do it over and over again. This is very similar to high intensity interval training, you know, burpee, you know, like a Metcon circuit in CrossFit. This is very similar to the type of intensity that you'd get with modern strength and conditioning training, where they try to do, you know, like super hardcore like circuits and stuff. What you call Metcon training, you know, rower circuits, kettlebell circuits mixed with burpees and rowers, whatever it might be, or even sprinting or running a mile in, I don't know, maybe not running a mile, but you get the picture. And it's very sport specific, but yet it trains those same energy systems. So a key thing to understand, and the reason why this is preferred and you can't just roll, the problem is, so a lot of people think if you just roll more that you're going to improve your gas tank. The problem is there's specific ways that people roll that can prevent any kind of like cardiovascular improvement from happening. And I've seen so many people who don't understand this, and they get angry at you and upset at you if you tap when they just hold you in side control. So this is the thing. The better you get at jiu-jitsu, and you'll hear this from people a lot, but they don't really look at this in terms of strength and conditioning. The whole goal of jiu-jitsu, the better you get at it, the whole goal is to become more efficient with your energy. So a lot of people, they say, oh, you don't need more cardio, you just need to be more efficient with your energy and your breathing, right? And a lot of people say, when you get to the higher levels of jiu-jitsu, you don't really feel, it doesn't feel as very vigorous at all, and blah, blah, blah. And that's because you get more efficient. So one example of this is when I roll with people who are focused entirely on winning the match rather than actually improving some aspect of their game or whatever. Like I've seen a lot of like heavier blue belts, for example, who they'll try as hard as they can to pry open my hips, and then they'll shoulder dive straight into side control. Like they jump into side control, freaking shoulder me in the jaw, and then they'll just hold me in side control for the whole freaking round. And they're like, maybe, I don't know, 60 pounds heavier than me, maybe more. And they have a really tight side control, and they'll just hold people there for the entire round every time they roll. And it's like, I could spend all this energy trying to escape side control. Maybe that would give, that gas myself out doing that, maybe getting sloppy, whatever. Maybe I'll get my back taken, make a mistake or whatever, and improve my conditioning somehow. But the fact is, getting smashed on the bottom, sure, you might not be able to breathe if you're on your back and someone has mount position and they're controlling your diaphragm, whatever. The point is, you don't really get the kind of conditioning you need to win jiu-jitsu matches, and you don't really get the type of skill development that you need to win jiu-jitsu matches or even to escape positions if you just always try to get your skill and your conditioning from rolling, okay? So for your conditioning, if your goal is to get better at jiu-jitsu to the point where you're consistently tapping higher and higher skill level opponents and winning in tournaments, you need conditioning specific to passing the guard or to sweeping from bottom. You need conditioning that is specific to finishing a choke, finishing a submission from top. And if you are having trouble, like if you're constantly getting submitted from back, for example, okay, just rolling more, it's going to be so random. Like, you're not going to be able to focus on your weak points if you're constantly just like rolling, okay? Some people might take your back and get you in that weak position that you need to work on. Some people might not. And the majority of your time rolling is not going to be spent on fixing your weaknesses. And this can transfer into all sports, really. But so the best way to get better at your skill, okay, like there's this like tough guy mentality. Just you got to get better at everything at once. It's like that is such an inefficient way to like improve skills. Focus on one position at a time that is going to train the quality that you want to get better at. For anaerobic conditioning, pass, sweep, or submit from different guard positions is great. You get to work on winning and defending very specific positions that are very important for competitions and to get better at the sport. Preventing yourself from ever getting inside control in the first place. The better you are at sweeping and submitting from any guard, the better you'll get at preventing from ever ending up in freaking bottom side control in the first place. And then you're also going to get like some really high intensity training from like guard retentions, trying to sweep people. It's really high intensity. And then there's no like resting. There's no just like, oh, I'm just going to stay here while this, really big person smashes me on top in side control or whatever. Like, no one gets better holding positions like that. Maybe you get better at distributing your leverage and stuff, but like, if it's just a stalemate like that in training, are you actually training? Or just waiting for the round to end? So, I'm just saying. I feel like you get better with skill and with endurance and conditioning if you actually do pass, sweep, or submit. If you do live rolling from a certain position, not live rolling, but positional rolling, where every time you use transition or you get to a better position or whatever, you reset. It's just better overall for everybody, especially beginners. Beginners, like for me, I really sucked at jiu-jitsu until I started to just do a lot of pass, sweep, or submit. Then all of a sudden I was passing people's guard, I was sweeping more. All of the skills that I was learning from the beginners classes, none of them ever worked for me until I started to just do positional rolling. So, and I think people as they get better at jiu-jitsu too, they find this as well. And this is what all the best are doing. If you listen to interviews with Nicky Rod and Gordon Ryan, they talk about a lot of the stuff they do is positional rolling, positional drilling. So I'm just saying, random training equals random results. So yeah, for your anaerobic conditioning, just doing a lot of live takedowns, which can maybe beat your body up, sure. Doing a lot of cage wrestling up against a cage or a wall, stuff like that is going to improve your scramble ability and your lactic capacity. So the more frequently you can do these things, the more frequently you'll see improvements in your skill level as well as your conditioning level. So the problem is, though, you can only do so much live rolling without like getting like knee pain and injuries and being excessively sore. And so the goal is to train as hard as you can, as often as you can, as specifically to your sport as you can, while also kind of managing the day-to-day pains, exhaustion, and recovery deficits. A lot of people, especially in combat sports, have this old school mentality, this tough guy mentality where just push as hard as you can and endure the suffering. You got to walk through the flames. And the fact is, people just burn out that way. A lot of people don't have the type of lifestyle that is able to support this type of training, although they should, be able to make compromises if their goal is to be a champion. The fact is, it's like, sure, you need to challenge yourself. You need to go hard. You need to be honest with how you're approaching training. But if you're consistently redlining it, that's always when people get injured. People don't get injured because they lift weights a certain way. Their form isn't good. They deadlift every day. People don't get injured because they play a lot of guard. People get injured because they're going too intense, too often, for too long. And that is training at or as close to your maximum intensity as you can. You can only do so much of that without the body adapt. Like, the body has to be able to adapt consistently to prevent overuse, damage, and over fatigue. Okay. For more on that, watch my video on fitness to fatigue and basically like recovery and stuff like that. Maybe I'll link in the description for you all. All right, so after you have all of this down, these are basics. This is what most people are doing, but they're just not seeing it through this lens. And if they did, they'd have so much better performance. After that, okay, if you can train your sport like this should comprise of 80 to 85% of all the time spent training, okay? The next thing is strength. Literally every single thing that we look to improve through strength and conditioning can be improved through practicing your sport and using certain perimeters and protocols. The only thing you can't train in your sport is progressive overload strength training, okay? And this is very important to understand. A lot of people are very resistant to this, but this is the biggest thing that you can do outside of your martial arts academy to get better and get a huge advantage on other people. Okay, when you do squats, deadlifts, overhead press, bench press, or some variation of those, pull-ups and stuff like that as well, what you're doing is you're putting your body under a stress. You're putting your bones, your connective tissue, your joints, ligaments, knees, elbows. You are putting your nervous system, your muscles, you're putting your entire body under a stress in that, using these exercises in that movement pattern. And what that does is it triggers the body to adapt to that stress to be able to tolerate more of it next time. When you squat 200 pounds, you are triggering your knees, your back, your spinal discs, all of this stuff to get stronger, to be able to endure more of that. And at first, you'll get sore for 2 or 3 weeks, but then your body will literally adapt, become more resilient. You won't get sore anymore, especially if you train more frequently. People think they got to train less to avoid soreness. No. The more frequently you train, at a 7 to 8 out of a 10, 10 being maximum intensity, the less sore you get because your body develops the tolerance to it. And the stronger you get over time. And what happens is, so for example, let's say that you are doing a grappling tournament in the absolute division, the unlimited weight capacity division. And you go in there and you're 150 pounds and you're about to wrestle with a 300-pound man. You as a 150-pound person with no strength training, your max squat might be 135 pounds, not even your body weight. And you are getting ready to put your whole body, your joints, your ligaments, your bones, through a wrestling match, a life or death situation almost. That's the way your body experiences it with a 300-pound man. How much of that 300-pound man crushing down on top of you, doing takedowns, coming down on side control, he's on top and you're in closed guard trying to do your guard game. If he stacks you and your spine is only adapted to squatting, 135 pounds, your spine has only ever experienced 135 pounds of force in the occasional fat guy. When he stacks you, when you try to arm bar him or in closed guard or whatever, when he's on top of you in full mount or in side control, that 300-pound man is going to feel like death because your body has never experienced 300 pounds before, or it's never been progressively and intentionally adapted to be able to resist that 300 pounds. You are way more likely to get injured if your body has not adapted to being able to lift 300 pounds. And I know that this sounds too basic, too good to be true maybe, too easy to understand. But this is literally how it works. This is literally why so many people insist that strength matters. It's not a matter of like, oh yeah, if I get stronger, I could just be like Brock Lesnar and pick you up over my head. No. But dealing with heavier weights and heavier forces become way easier for you over time. Takedowns that you used to have trouble getting on certain people become easier to get. Sweeps that you used to have trouble executing, even with perfect technique, take way less effort the stronger you get. Submissions that you might have trouble finishing from certain positions sometimes, they become easier to finish when you gain strength. Defending against Kimuras, defending against takedowns, defending against, like being able to pass someone's guard. When you do a full body basic strength training program and you see your squat go from 135 pounds for a set of 5 to 300 pounds for a set of 5 in 6 months, which by the way, that's a 160-pound fighter could easily make that transformation in 6 months if they really tried hard. Every aspect of your game is going to improve when you're stronger. Okay, and there are specific ways of grappling that work better with strength than others. For example, close guard game, smash passing, and doing like really tight back takes. Okay, and that's really what my game kind of looks like now. It's a lot more of like positions that favor my squatting, deadlifting, overhead pressing. So not only are you going to be able to prevent your risk of injury, because your bones, your joints, your ligaments, all of the tissues of your body are becoming stronger and more resilient. They're becoming more able to deal with the stress, the force. They're more able to resist the force, resist the gravity of opponents coming crashing down on you. Back pain, back injuries, hip injuries, all of that are going to become less likely the stronger that these tissues get. They're going to be able to resist more damage, more stress, more force. The entire purpose of strength training is to increase your body's ability to produce force and to resist force coming down on it, okay? So literally, the stronger your squat gets, the stronger your deadlift gets, the stronger your hips get, the stronger your spine gets, the stronger your knees get from squatting, the stronger your shoulders get. As long as you're not training stupid, like, a lot of these programs out there are way too intense and not necessary for improvement. If you follow a properly auto-regulated strength program, like we're talking squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, pull-ups, rows, okay? 3 sets of 3 to 8, okay? 3 times a week, full body. Start light, progressively increase the volume, increase the weight over time as it gets easier for you. First of all, you're not going to be too sore. You're not going to be beat up from the weight training. You're going to start to notice you recover better over time. You're going to get stronger. You're going to feel more confident because your damn weights are going up. But you're also going to see your strength translate into actual sport performance. You're going to love it after a while. The main key, though, is using auto-regulation and not pushing and making sure you are increasing the weight over time and the weight training is getting easier for you, but not going so hard and pushing yourself so much that you're reaching failure at certain reps and redlining it. That's where people get too sore, too injured, and their body can't really adapt, and you just reach what people call overtraining is really just your training's too intense and your body's not adapting to it. That's really what's going on. So everything needs to be auto-regulated and intentional, okay? A lot of people think just challenge yourself, just go harder, face harder opponents. People think get smashed, and you got to get smashed as a white belt, and that's the only way to get better, and they think the more suffering you go through during training, the more intentional and productive it is. And if you feel like garbage one day, just push through it. That's the only way you'll ever get better, people say. That's not true. If your cardio is not improving, it's because you need to do more things to challenge your cardio. Like, for example, for me, because I've been working so much lately, I haven't been able to train jiu-jitsu as much as I'd like. So my conditioning really sucks. And it's really crazy how much of a difference it makes when I train 5 days a week, multiple hours a day, compared to if I only train 3 days a week, 1 hour a day. My cardio is heavily dependent on the frequency of my actual sport training, okay? So that brings me to the next point. If you're not able to practice your sport consistently, if you can only make it 3 days a week, it will be very common for you to notice your cardio is going to suck. And people will tell you, oh, you're just not efficient, whatever. No, they don't understand. Like, efficiency comes from training more frequently usually, and training more frequently improves your conditioning to do the type of training that you're doing on that frequency. So what you need to do, if you can't train 5 days a week or whatever, you need to improve your body's work capacity and conditioning off the mat when you have time, through running, through rower circuits, through sprinting, different conditioning modalities that target aerobic capacity, like running, like we talked about, the flow sparring and drilling. And then you need something that challenges your anaerobic system, or your anaerobic capacity, your lactic capacity, which would be like sprinting intervals, Tabata, rower circuits, rower intervals, burpees for time with rest intervals, stuff like that. And you can even use cluster sets in weight training. Do a set of 3 on squats with 300 pounds, rest 30 seconds, do another set of 3, rest 30 seconds, and keep repeating that till you reach like 10 sets of 3, which would be 30 total reps with 30 seconds rest in between. That is a really good way to improve your conditioning, even though a lot of people think it's just meathead stuff. It's really not. So that's an idea. There's a lot of ways that you can improve your cardio, your conditioning, hitting the bag, all that stuff. Running is fine. You need aerobic capacity and anaerobic capacity no matter what you do, okay? So this is where a lot of people, they say, just train more. If you need more cardio, roll more. That's what I do. And look, if you don't have the time, if you can't make it to classes when classes are scheduled, if you're always working during those scheduled times or whatever, make an effort when you do have time to do extra cardio. That's usually the reason why people really suffer if they can't train more often. Okay? And then practice technique whenever you can. So that's the cardio component. Cardio is very important. You don't need to run to do it, but you need to do something consistently that challenges your cardio. And if you can't get that cardio stimulus from rolling for whatever reason, or from sport training, sparring, whatever, from drilling, you need to get it from the treadmill, from the track, from burpees, Tabata, plank ups, whatever. You need to get your conditioning in. Okay, but it's better to do it from your actual sport practice. If your coach is having you do an hour worth of body weight exercises when you're at class, I don't know. You should maybe talk to your coach about, hey, I came here to learn jiu-jitsu and stuff, and I get conditioning from jiu-jitsu or whatever. Can you do more jiu-jitsu, more Muay Thai, and less of this stuff that I could just do at my house? All right. So the last thing we'll talk about is power production, okay? So look, when you are doing your sport training, when you're sparring, if you spar with more power, spar with more speed, when whatever we're talking about here, right? If you train to be more explosive during sport practice, that's the number one way to get more powerful. Nothing you do outside of training, medicine ball throws, Olympic lifting, those will all help. But the most important thing is intention to explode, intention for power. So when you're actually training, of course, you don't want to be a spazzy person. You don't want to hit super hard. It's not what I'm saying. But in your movement, when you're entering for a takedown, when you are passing someone's guard, when you're going for a sweep, going for a submission, when you're reversing these things, or if you're entering the pocket when you're doing kickboxing sparring, do it more explosively. Make your movement more explosive, but still be controlled, okay? If you're one of those, one stripe blue belts or whatever who still hasn't passed the spazzy white belt phase, and your idea of power and explosiveness is forcing someone's guard open, and then like freaking shoulder tackling into side control and like busting someone's lip open, you know, and then just like forcing your damn forearm in their jaw. Like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about controlled power, you know. Train with intention during your sport. But the other thing you can do is obviously, first and foremost, Olympic lifting or some kind of heavy, what's known as alactic power, just meaning explosive training without oxygen, essentially. Like you could do, like if you feel unsafe learning power cleans, snatches, jerks, push presses. Those are the best thing you really can do, and they're really safe if you have the right coach, but most people are just too scared of it. The best thing you can do is, other than that, would be explosive deadlifts, explosive squats, using box squats explosively, you know, with proper technique and control, but with maximum, it's known as compensatory acceleration training, moving that weight as explosively and fast as you can. That is how you do it. And it does a similar thing that power cleans and stuff does, and maybe to a higher degree. So taking 50% of your 1 rep max and just lifting as fast as you can. Maybe upwards of up to like 80% of your 1 rep max should be the cutoff point. Lifting that as fast as you can. You can even do it for cluster sets to get a little bit more like conditioning in. Which you don't want to do cardio and conditioning in the weight room. If you're doing really light squats for high reps and you're doing burpees and like freaking rope, battle ropes or whatever, that's just going to get you really sore and exhausted and not really going to, you'd be better off just sparring more, like instead of doing that. That's not going to transfer very well to your actual sport. I mean, it kind of may be for your aerobic capacity, but yeah, so after power cleans and explosive kind of free weight movements with relatively heavy weight, you want to make sure you progressively overload everything. What you can do is plyometrics. So box jumps, medicine ball passes, throwing, jumping of all sorts of kinds. Those are really, really good, you know. But you want to make sure that you're increasing the distance you're jumping, the height that you're jumping, or some aspect of your agility or your explosiveness or power. You want to make sure that you are increasing an aspect of those things. So, you know, you can't just be doing the same, you know, just random medicine ball that feels good for the day, and then you never really you never really track your progress. If you're not logging your progress and trying to improve the numbers and the reps and the times and the distance over time, then you're not really training. You're just like having fun, like a regular gym bro. So this is the thing people don't understand. All right. So that's pretty much it for the most part, you know. The main takeaway is get most of your aerobic and anaerobic conditioning from sport practice, and then do strength training and auto-regulate and progressively overload. And you really need to understand auto-regulation and progressive loading, okay? And understand how just because you lift more doesn't mean you're actually getting stronger, but lifting more over time is a symptom of getting stronger. Those are the two most important things you can do. And then, you know, cardio outside of your sport training, plyometrics and Olympic lifting, all of those things are going to be directly improved already from strength training. You don't need to do them, but it would, if you have time to do them, and at specific times of the year, you can periodize it and you can do those. That would be a good idea. So, yeah, and it's a lot more. There's a lot more to it, but I just want to get a easy to understand, practical explanation out there. So. Let me know. Leave your comments down below. And the other thing is recovery. If you're training right, recovery is not something you need to worry and obsess about, because you'll find that you're adapting and recovering pretty well as long as you auto-regulate and train intelligently. All right, leave your comments down below, and I'll talk to y'all next time.